Have you ever felt like you're holding your breath in your business? Like there's a pressure, unseen but constant, pushing you to be more perfect, more polished, more palatable than you naturally are. In this deeply personal episode, I'm sharing a haunting dream that became a powerful metaphor for what I call the invisible corset, that internalized force in all of us women that we carry every day. And much like the corsets worn in the Victorian era, this one doesn't just shape our bodies, it compresses our power, it silences our intuition, restricts our breath, our creativity, our truth. And I'm exploring how this invisible corset shows up in our work and in our worth. How perfectionism tightens the laces, how we contort ourselves to be liked, to be safe, to belong, and how to begin the sacred and tender process of loosening those binds. If you have ever dimmed your light to fit in, shrunk your rates to seem reasonable, or exhausted yourself trying to keep everyone else comfortable, welcome. It's time to unlace what no longer serves you. It's time to breathe fully, freely as yourself.
Welcome to Herself, a space for women to have deep conversations about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, so you can become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. After being in business for over 2 decades, I've learned, as you likely have too, that as you grow your business grows you in unexpected, often challenging, yet miraculous ways. Here, we'll talk about how to get out of your own way so you can grow a business that's abundant and sustainable while allowing you to be a force for good in the world. I'll give you simple, actionable strategies as well as wisdom and inspiration to help you root into your wholeness, lead from your values, and work in ways that feel deeply aligned so you can bring your true self into the world through your business and in every area of your life.
This past winter, I was really delving deep into my inner world, and I felt really called to listen more closely to my soul. It's part of this larger menopausal trajectory that I'm on. And this winter just felt like a good incubation period to really be tracking my dreams more and journaling about my dreams and interpreting my dreams. And I had one in particular that really, really stuck out for me, and that I spent quite a bit of time unpacking it. It actually had 3 different parts to it, and I'm only going to share the kind of the middle part, the second part of it, because that's the one that's most relevant for us right now. And so here's how it goes. I was in a dim, crowded room. It was kind of like a, how to say it, maybe like a banquet hall, or it was a formal event, and there were people all around, people socializing and drinking and eating, and I was kind of in the center of the room next to a tall, gaunt man who wore a black suit and a black top hat, and he had a very sharp nose. He was very thin. He had a white goatee that was neatly trimmed, and he exuded kind of like an eerie, cold control. And he wordlessly placed this metal vise around my waist. And he held the vise with it's kind of like a steel rod. And from that steel rod, he was able to tighten the vise. And so he began to tighten it. Click, click, click. And with each turn, I could feel the breath being squeezed from me. And my ribs ached, my stomach clenched. I was in so much pain. And I was thinking to myself, I don't even know how I'm enduring this much pain right now. And he was parading me through the room, holding me with that rod. And I was crying out for help, but no one was looking at me. No one was acknowledging me. And just when I thought I couldn't take another moment, when I couldn't take any more pain, he kept tightening the vise, and I was just completely shocked at, oh my gosh, I just a moment ago I didn't think I could take any more pain. And now he's tightening it more and I'm taking even more pain. Like, how am I even doing this? And so when I woke up, I knew this wasn't just a dream. Dreams aren't just dreams, they're messages. They're metaphors. And, I'll go into that in more depth, but one of the things I want to speak to that was happening in my life at that time, which I've shared about here on this podcast, is that my fiance Chris went into the hospital this winter. He had a pulmonary embolism, some blood clot in his lungs that had been misdiagnosed as pneumonia for 2 or 3 weeks until it got to the point where it was very, very severe until they finally correctly diagnosed it. We were in the ER and then in the hospital, and it was quite a scary ride. And I was in the middle of launching a program. My mom went into the hospital at the same time with the same exact thing, pulmonary embolism. I mean, what are the odds of that? And Chris and my mom are the two people that I'm closest to in my life. And it was, I mean, to say it was a lot is a massive understatement, full on with a launch. And there were some tech complications that happened with my Facebook ads. And I was needing to spend a lot of time trying to sort that out, caring for my partner, feeling deep concern for my mom, just even wondering if many times if both of their lives were very much at risk. And I didn't feel like I had room to breathe in my life for that period of time. And I remember there were periods of time where I just wanted to get in my car and just scream because I just didn't have space. And for those of you who have been through perimenopause or you're going through perimenopause, you know that it's the autumn season of our lives as women. And what we know from seasonal living is that autumn is a time of slowing down, it's a time when we need more space. So I was experiencing that while my soul has been calling me to take more space, demanding me to take more space for this important process that's happening, that my soul, that my body are guiding me through. So that was the context that I had this dream. But I also know that, this symbol of this vice, it's a symbol that lives inside not just me, but all of us as women. And it's what I call the invisible corset. And in my second book, the Book of She, I talk about this invisible corset, and particularly in the context of the inner patriarch, which is a part of us that has that internalized, or it's multiple parts that have that internalized voice of authority, control, perfectionism that tightens around our bodies, our power, our creative expression. And historically, corsets emerged in the 16th century and they became ubiquitous during the Victorian era. And while they were presented as fashion, they served a deeper purpose to contain and restrict and reshape women. And corsets compressed our solar plexus, which is it's the center of our power and of our will. And as a woman who I've been deep in my own embodiment practice for 25 years now, and embodiment is a key part of the work that I do with other women, I know that our solar plexus are shut down and there's a lot of armoring there. So corsets also silence the womb, our connection, like kind of that heart to womb connection, which is so important for the flow of our life force and our inner knowing. And they made it impossible to breathe fully, dulling our aliveness and just reinforcing our submission. And eventually the physical corset fell out of fashion. And my theory about that is that the powers that be, the patriarchal powers that be, they kept the corsets in place long enough until they saw that women had learned to wear them internally, that we started to internalize this invisible corset. And so we didn't need that external control mechanism anymore. And today, even without boning and lace, many of us still live tightly laced in our own invisible corsets. We hold our breath in moments of visibility. We fill our days and our lives with so much so that we don't feel like we have room to breathe. We shrink ourselves for other people. We smooth our edges to stay palatable. And we think we're being professional, but really we're being constricted. We think we're doing fine, but we're silently submitting to the inner patriarch, which can include an inner pusher, the perfectionist, the controller, the critic, and anyone who has done I have an on demand course. You can find it on my website, sarahvonstover.com. I have a course called Befriending Your Inner Critic, where I go through all of these different aspects of the critic because there's different facets of them for us to get to know in order to start unwinding them or really, shifting the locus of power. So this episode is for every woman who's ever felt that ache of compression, who's tired of being polished, perfect, pleasing, tired of squeezing herself to keep up in a world that is so focused on productivity. And it's time to unlace that corset and to finally begin to breathe. So, even as you're listening to me right now, I invite you to breathe more fully. Like, let your actual belly, let your actual navel move. And those of you who've been on retreat with me in person, this is something that we do on day one. It's like we really liberate the belly and bring our breath back into the belly, into our hips, into our womb, into our root. So really, cultivate, prioritize that kind of breath as we're spending this time together here today. So like I said, the corset, this invisible corset didn't emerge from nowhere. The inner patriarch didn't emerge from nowhere. It really developed as our protective response to a world that demanded our silence and our smallness and our submission. It was like we internalized it so that we could conform in order to stay safe and to survive. And as I explore in my second book, The Book of She, I said, just as our inner critics developed to protect us from shame and pain of disgracing our families, our inner patriarchs developed to protect us from dishonoring our societies, to keep us in line. We internalized the voices that told us we were inferior to men. And think about the messages that you received growing up. Like, you must be seen and not heard. You have to work twice as hard as a man in order to earn half as much. No matter how hard you try, you'll always be inferior to men. Even if these weren't explicitly stated, they were implied through the treatment you received, the examples you witnessed, the subtle and not so subtle ways you learned to make yourself smaller to stay safe. And for women business owners like us, this inner patriarch shows up, for example, as a perfectionist who demands flawless execution before you'll share your work. Could be a pusher who believes that rest is lazy and unproductive. A controller who needs to micromanage every single detail of your business. A critic who constantly compares you to other people. So remember, these parts developed to protect you. They believed that if you could just be perfect enough, controlled enough, productive enough, you'd finally earn the validation, the safety, the success, the belonging that you craved. But we all know as grown women now that these protective mechanisms, they exact a heavy toll. And I've seen women delay launching for years saying, I'm not ready yet. I've watched brilliant healers and coaches undervalue their services because they don't believe that they're enough. They spend thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on trainings and trainings and more trainings because they think that they don't know enough. And I've worked with visionaries who exhaust themselves trying to do it all rather than asking and being vulnerable and taking the risk of seeking out more help, more support. And, the most disorienting part is that, like my dream showed me that many of us don't even realize we're wearing this corset. And we don't realize how tightly it is squeezing us, how painful it really is. And, a lot of the time when women start working with me, they come feeling run down, they come feeling depleted, and that stems from a variety of things. Part of what we do in the beginning is really like diagnose where is this energy drain coming from? And we get to the root of that. So there is more aliveness, there is more enjoyment, there is more fulfillment. And a lot of women think, well, my inner masculine is just fine. And maybe even he's too good at what he does, but how can I strengthen my relationship to the feminine? But I need to push back on that because what we mistake as fine is actually our unconscious submission to these more controlling inner voices. And we've actually confused the inner patriarch with the divine masculine. And we think that pushing and forcing and controlling is simply how to get things done, how to be in our masculine energy in business. But truly, there's a world of difference between the divine masculine that provides healthy structure, boundaries, aligned action, and the inner patriarch that constricts our true expression and separates us actually from our deeper wisdom. So, as always, the first step in loosening your corset, your invisible corset, is simply recognizing that you're wearing one. We all are. And, where in your business, where in your life, your creativity, your leadership, are you feeling that squeeze? Where do you feel like you don't have enough breathing room? And what parts of your genuine expression are you containing? So the insidious nature of the invisible corset is that it's precisely that, it's invisible. We've worn it for so long that the constriction, it just feels normal. It becomes our baseline. And again, that makes it super challenging to even recognize that we're being squeezed in the first place. But our bodies know, our spirits know. They send us signals when the corset is tightening, just like that dream sent me that signal. So physically, you might notice like shallow breathing, particularly when you are about to share something that's vulnerable or you're about to step into visibility. You could feel tension in your solar plexus, which is that space right below your sternum that often feels tight or knotted. You might sense a persistent feeling of exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. Disconnection from your body's wisdom, ignoring hunger, thirst, your need to rest. Chronic tension in your jaw, shoulders, neck, the kind of the physical manifestation of holding yourself in. And in your business, in your creative life, the tightening corset can show up as procrastination on projects that matter deeply to you, constant overthinking and second guessing your decisions, fear of visibility that keeps you playing small, people pleasing behaviors that leave you resentful and drained, kind of undercharging for your work while over delivering to compensate, and that familiar all or nothing approach. Like if it's not perfect, then why bother? So perfectionism, as I write about in the book of She, it yanks our invisible corsets too tight and clamps down our unique creative expression. It stops failure and mess in their tracks. And in doing so, denies both life and death. Perfectionism is at its core about control. So let me share a personal example. When I was writing my first book, The Way of the Happy Woman, I found myself paralyzed for weeks or even on and off throughout the several months that I wrote that book. I had a clear vision. I had passionate readers waiting. I knew that I was a strong writer. I've always loved writing. I had a message that I deeply believed in. But many times when I sat down to write, I would literally freeze. My breath would become shallow. My mind would race with all the ways that I might get it wrong. And my inner patriarch had tightened the corset. And I think we all know what the result of that is. It's creative constipation, physical exhaustion, spiritual depletion. So, likely you recognize this pattern in yourself, and maybe you feel it when you're about to send out that newsletter to let your clients know that you're raising your rates or to decline a request that doesn't fit with what your priorities are in this season of life. And that tightening is your signal. It's the moment to notice that you're not actually wearing your authentic power. You're wearing a constriction that has been placed upon your authentic power. And the good news, once you recognize that you have the corset on, you can begin the sacred work of unlacing it. So, how do we do that? How do we start to unlace it? This is where we can bring some IFS in. And remember, the beauty of IFS is that it doesn't ask us to banish or battle the corset, these constraining parts. Instead, it just invites us to understand them. And we're particularly talking about the perfectionist, the pusher, the controller, the critic. Again, these are not enemies to vanquish. The inner patriarch is not something we're trying to get rid of. It's a part of us. It's an aspect of us that we really need to understand and to transform from the inside out. So let me guide you through a gentle process to begin working with your own inner patriarch parts using the IFS framework. First, I invite you to identify a specific situation in your life right now or in your work right now where you feel your corset tightening. So maybe it's when you're about to share your work, set a boundary, ask for more money, ask for money in general. Just notice the physical sensations, the emotions, the thoughts that arise. Next, get curious about which aspect of your inner patriarch is present. Is it the perfectionist insisting that nothing is ever good enough? The pusher demanding that you work harder? The controller needing everything to go exactly as planned? And once you've identified this part, just create a bit of separation between you and it. This is what we call in IFS unblending. So, for example, rather than saying, I am a perfectionist, you can say, I notice a part of me that strives for perfection. And this simple shift creates space for your true self to witness, for your true self to emerge, even just a little bit more. And from just this little bit more space, you can start to engage in a dialogue with that part. And you might ask things like, when did you first come into my life? What are you afraid would happen if you relaxed your grip? What are you trying to protect me from? Where did you learn to protect me in this way? And as always, and if you've been around here for a while, you're used to listening with this curiosity and compassion. And you may discover that your perfectionist believes that without its vigilance, you'll be rejected. Or your pusher might fear that without its constant prodding, you'll never accomplish anything meaningful. And your controller might be desperately trying to prevent past pain from repeating. As you listen to their concerns, just acknowledge the protective intention behind each of these parts, even as you recognize that their methods likely are outdated and yes, constricting. And if it feels genuine, you can thank them for trying to keep you safe all of these years. Then you could also gently explore what these parts might need in order to begin to feel safe enough to loosen their grip. And often they just need to know that your adult self is present and capable of guiding your life with wisdom and discernment. They just need to know that there's a grown up in the room, that they don't need to be the ones steering your life anymore. And this doesn't mean that these parts disappear overnight. In fact, they're not going to disappear. They're just going to shift and transform into some other aspect of you. So, unlacing the corset is a process, not a one and done event. It needs that consistent, compassionate attention where these parts can, over time, trust your leadership enough to step back from these more extreme roles. So, as your invisible corset begins to loosen, kind of a profound question can start to emerge. And that is, who are you when you're not constantly constricted? What becomes possible when you can finally breathe fully into your power, into your presence, into your purpose? So let's begin with the physical act of breathing. Hopefully, you've been prioritizing deeper breaths as you've been listening to me. And right now, I invite you to place your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your belly, right below your belly button. And join me in taking a slow, deep breath that fills your belly first and that then rises to expand your chest. Feel how your body softens and likely your mind quiets a bit. You might even sense that some of your energy centers in your abdomen and your chest open a bit more. This full, expansive breath is your birthright. It is the natural way your body was designed to receive life force. And when so many of us have been breathing in these shallow, constrained patterns, these fear patterns, these patterns of needing to suck it in and be thin, be palatable, we've been doing this for so long that we've forgotten what it feels like to be truly filled with breath, to be truly filled with our life force. And the same is true for our creative and even our entrepreneurial expression. We've been operating within such narrow parameters that we've forgotten the vastness of what's possible when we remove those constrictions. So, here are some practices that you could try on if you feel called to help you reclaim that vastness. So, first, you could create permission slips for imperfection, like literally write them out. I give myself permission to send this email with typos. I give myself permission to launch this offering before it's perfect. I give myself permission to rest even when my to do list is not yet complete. Next, you can establish good enough standards for various aspects of your work, like what level of quality is truly necessary for each task. Not everything needs to be museum quality. Sometimes done is better than perfect. And I'd say always done is better than perfect. So next, practice speaking your truth even when your voice shakes. Start in small, safe contexts and gradually expand. Notice how your capacity for authentic expression grows with each brave act of sharing. And something that I do when I know that I need to share something vulnerable and I know my voice is going to shake a little bit is I preface it by saying, I have something vulnerable to share, or I'm feeling really nervous right now. It's like I don't try to pretend that that's not happening. It just helps me just to name it. Set boundaries that honor your energy, your values, and your time, remembering that no is a complete sentence and saying no to what doesn't serve you creates space for what does. And if you want more inspiration around that, you can go to episode 224, where I talk more about setting sacred boundaries in your business. Challenge yourself to take visible, imperfect action in your business. Ship the work before you feel ready. Share the story before you've polished every word. Connect with your audience before you have all the answers. Get on video before you think that you look perfect, because none of us are perfect. And perhaps more importantly, you can ask yourself these reflection questions. What would you do if you trusted yourself fully and didn't need to do it perfectly? Can this be enough right now? Can you be enough right now? What might be possible if you allowed yourself to take up more space? Whose permission are you still waiting for? So, I want to be clear that unlacing your corset doesn't mean abandoning all structure and boundaries. And again, the divine masculine, as opposed to the inner patriarch, it provides healthy containment that actually supports your fullest expression. And again, one of the things that women come to me for in my core program and also my one-on-one offerings is they just say, I don't have systems and structures in my business. And I used to not have those too. And they make a world of difference. They provide that containment for your feminine magic. So as you continue this journey of liberation, remember that you will likely need to unlace your corset again and again. This is centuries old. And old patterns have a way of tightening when we're stressed, triggered, facing new levels of visibility. Maybe you've heard that saying, new level, new devil. But with practice, you'll become more skilled at noticing the constriction and being able to give yourself what you need, give yourself the space that you need to breathe more fully again, both literally and metaphorically. And perhaps most importantly, you'll inspire other women to do the same. And just like my dream inspired me to make some shifts in my life, and I made them pretty immediately. And that's what our dreams are here for. It's like they're here to help us guide how we're living our lives. They want us to respond to them. And then my dream is allowing me to share this with you, to inspire you, hopefully, to breathe more fully into your power, to becoming, a living permission for you to unlace your own invisible corset. And this is how we create change in our collective experience as women, one deep, full breath at a time. So remember, loosening your corset isn't a one time decision. It is a practice, it is a journey, it is a way of life. And sometimes it's a quiet moment to moment choice, just to breathe a little bit more deeply as we're doing together here now, to soften a little bit more, to give yourself a little bit more space, a little bit more grace, and to show up more as your whole self. So when that tall, shadowy figure from my dream, when your inner patriarch makes an appearance, in those moments, I want you to remember you have awareness now, you have tools. You can pause, you can breathe, you can make different choices. You can return to your body, you can return to your breath, you can return to the truth that you are enough, not because of how much you achieve or how perfectly you perform, but because you simply are. And the parts of you that still try to tighten the corset, the perfectionist, the pusher, the controller, the critic, they are not enemies. They are protectors. They arose to keep you safe in a world that taught you that shrinking was survival. And they deserve your compassion and your appreciation, even as you lovingly reclaim your power from their grip. And as you begin to unlace your own corset, you do more than liberate yourself. You send ripples outward. Every time you choose authenticity, how do you get that word out? Authenticity over appearance. Every time you choose rest over striving or imperfect action over paralysis, you make it more okay for other women to do that too. We are in this together. This is really the sacred work of our time, right? We're reclaiming our breath, our bodies, our businesses from the patriarchal forces, both internal and external, that have kept us small, kept us contained. This is spiritual work. This is political work. This is deeply personal work. And if you're feeling called to deepen in this work within a community of fellow wise, wholehearted women business owners, I am thrilled to invite you to my first ever Her Self retreat. We are gathering in May of 2026 in France for a transformative journey of feminine reclamation. We'll be drawing on IFS-based healing, feminine embodiment and meditation, soulful business visioning and strategizing. We'll create space for the breakthroughs that you're ready for, held in beauty and rest and sisterhood. And early registration opens this week, this final week of May, and spaces are intentionally limited. This is an intimate experience. So if you want to join us or get on the wait list, this same link will either take you to the wait list before registration opens, or once registration opens, it will take you directly to that page. It is sarahavaughnstover.com/retreat. That's sarahavaughnstover.com/retreat. And you can also find the link in the show notes. And if this episode stirred something in you, please share it with another woman in your life who might be quietly or more loudly feeling the squeeze of her own invisible corset. And sometimes we all know the right story at the right time is the exact permission slip that we need to begin loosening what might be holding us back, consciously or unconsciously. As always, thank you for being here with me today. And until next time, may you breathe more freely and lead more boldly.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, change doesn't come from listening alone. I invite you to commit to taking one small or large, courageous action after today's conversation. One step you can take, if you haven't already, is to sign up for my Sunday journal. It's a weekly newsletter filled with inspiration and reflections about the intersection between spiritual entrepreneurship and fulfilling your potential, to help you become the woman you truly are in every area of your life. You can subscribe at programs-sarahavaughnstover.com/journal. And if you found this podcast valuable, please share it with the women in your world. Also, I'd be very grateful if you'd leave a review. It helps others find resources like this, and I'd love to hear what's coming alive for you after listening today. Above all, keep going, and never forget the unique offerings you and your true self bring to the world. Until next time, I'm sending you my heartfelt support.